Good evening. Oh, everyone turn your mics on. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 28th, 2023 Daytona Beach Shores City Council, City Commission meeting. Joanna, can you take a roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Miller,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Politis,
Here.
Commissioner Bryan,
Here.
Commissioner Economos,
Here.
Commissioner Lindauer.
Here.
Thank you, Joanna. Reverend Bob?
Thank you. Will you stand with me as we share this invocation together? O good and holy one, we gather tonight in your eyesight and with your blessing. As we come together, we ask your presence and your wisdom to be among us in this place and among us in the decisions that need to be made this evening. We ask that you will give wise counsel to those in decision-making ways. We ask that you will give quickness of thought to those who are presenting the challenges and the difficulties, as well as the opportunities that are before us. God of creation, we continue to pray for our coastline, for the devastation of the hurricanes recently, and for those who have been affected and all those who come to visit. We ask your guidance and your love in dealing with this situation. And finally, as Bike Week approaches, we ask that you will be with those who will be traveling to enjoy our city and the surrounding area. Keep them safe in their travels here. May they find that they enjoy their time here, and may they return to their homes safely. We especially pray for our safety and law enforcement officers who have a big responsibility during Bike Week. We pray that you will keep them safe and that you will return them to their families each day in a safe way. We ask these things as we gather and as we conduct this business in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Bob. Please join me in pledge allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Oops. Okay, today we will start with the presentation, and I believe that is from our Community Service Director, Stuart Cruz. Stuart, if you could step up, please.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. Again, for the record, my name is Stuart Cruz, Community Service Director with the City of Daytona Beach Shores. So the City Manager had asked me a while ago to go ahead and give the City Commission and the citizens an update with regards to the public beach access recovery efforts that the city is undertaking. And so this is going to be the focus of my presentation in this moment. And this is only for the city beach accesses. We're not going to speak to the county or to private beach access at this point in time.
Sir, before you get started, I know at the beginning we had a little bit of discrepancy if the condo owned it, if the city owned it, or the county owned it. Do we feel like we have that nailed down now?
Yes,
that okay?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Can you speak a little louder?
Yeah, could you put it, your microphone probably needs to be moved a little bit. Some people are having a hard time. Thank
Can
you.
y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Try it
much
again.
better.
And let's see.
Let's see.
I'll have
Sing a few bars and we're good to go.
I'll have my back row raise their hand. Ms. Marilyn, Mr. Dryer. Okay.
Certainly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So again, this is just an overview in terms of the recovery efforts that the city is making with regards to public beach access after the hurricanes. So in terms of why we have all these beach access here in Daytona Beach Shores, these pedestrian beach access, there is a requirement in our city's code, Chapter 14, that requires that every new condo or every new development on beachside bills and dedicates a public beach access to the city whenever there's a new development. And so the dedication is typically done for the upland area by deed or by easement, or in some cases, it would actually just be through an easement, and the condo would actually maintain that property. But the dune walkover itself, or the stairs, is actually provided to the city through a bill of sale. There's also another option in our code in which if there's a dune walkover nearby, within 1,000 feet, the condo may go ahead and say, the city may say, you have an option to either build it or to go ahead and give us money that would cost the construction or the building of that particular dune walkover and that upland area, and you dedicate that to the city's fund, and the city would use that for beach recovery efforts and for maintenance of the dune walkovers in general. So that is the general background as to why we have all these dune walkovers and public beach access from A1A to the beach. So the county also provides vehicular access and pedestrian access to the beach. They have a website on their county website where it actually gives updates, daily updates with regards to how the improvements are going with regards to reopening those pedestrian and vehicular access. And if anybody needs this, I can go ahead and provide this to you later on. So with the county and the city, we have a total of 32 beach access here within the city of Daytona Beach Shores. So 11 of those are pedestrian walkways that the city is fully responsible for, and then there's also a pedestrian access at Fenari Park. There are 2 pedestrian walkways in which there's a joint responsibility between the city and a private condo. In this case, the condo owns the upland area, basically the concrete part from A1A down to the seawall, and then the city would own the actual dune walkover. And then the county has 3 parks that you're probably familiar with: Frank Rendon, Hex, and Dahlia. And then they also have 1 pedestrian walkway and 9 vehicular ramps. And then the county also has a county-private relationship in which, and it's at Fan Avenue, in which the property owner to the north actually has a relationship with the county in which they have to maintain that park and that dune walkover for certain items. And then there are 4 pedestrian walkways that are fully private in which the city has no responsibility for. So there's a total of 32 beach access within the city today. And that's a quick overview. So in terms of the actual beach access impacts that we saw from the 22 hurricanes, essentially 9 of these beach access locations had upland damage. And when I say upland damage, I mean basically the seawall and the area behind, or the area behind the seawall, in which there was a washout because of either scouring, or the water came from above, or the water came from an adjacent property in which their seawall failed and the water came around and essentially scoured out that area where the city walkway is. All of our dune walkovers, meaning the wooden component, suffered some sort of damage or total loss. And essentially you see we have 14, and all 14 of them have been impacted in some way. And this is a list of the specific damage that we have observed at these properties. So I'm going to go through, I'm not sure if everyone has been on the beach, but essentially I'm going to go through each of these locations and just give you an overview as to the damage that we saw there. So this is Ocean Vistas, which is at the 1925 South Atlantic Avenue address. You can see that the seawall is still intact. However, the dune walkover is damaged, the wooden component. If you look at a beach view, this is on the left-hand side. That is what it looked like prior to the storm in 2013, thanks to Google Maps. And after the storm, post-Nicole, you can see what is remaining there. See, the seawall is still intact, and so you'll hear later on from me that this is one of the dune walkovers that we're hoping to replace rather quickly. This is the Opus, which is next to Botifer. And when we say Opus, or we give a specific condominium name, it's just for a point of reference. These are all city walkways in some way, shape, or fashion. So this is an aerial view, and again, you can see how the wooden walkway has been damaged. This is what it looked like prior to the storm and after the storm, left and right, respectively. And so we are trying to remove dune walkovers that have been damaged, the remnants of those, but in this case, we're hoping to leave this there because, as you can see from the photograph, the city's dune walkover is actually supporting that material, that seawall there. They have what looks like a primary and a secondary seawall system, but for liability purposes, we probably don't want to touch it at this point. This is the St. Martin aerial view, you can see that this one took a good beating as well. The seawall has been damaged, and it's really interesting as to what's remaining there right now. If you look on the right-hand side, you can see this was actually, post-Nicole, this was actually maybe a 15-foot remnant section of the dune walkover that was there. On the left-hand side, you can see what was there before. And you'll hear later on, I'll mention that this section has actually been removed for safety purposes. So this is the Bella Vista aerial view. You can see the seawall's gone as well, and the dune walkover. And this is essentially what it looked like before and after the storm. This is the Emerald Shores, and this is one of the few locations in which the dune walkover was gone, but the seawall was remained intact. So that's what was there before, and to the right you can see what is there now. This is St. Kitts. And to the left below is what was there before and what's there more or less now after the storm on the right-hand side. This is Tuscany Shores. This is one of our biggest dune walkover. And we actually have our engineer who, thanks to the commission, just approving at the last commission meeting, the contract with Zev Cohen. We have our engineers who are doing a rapid needs assessment to fully analyze each of these locations to figure out a path forward, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. So you can see this is actually one of the highest dune walkovers that we have. We're thinking it's about 20 feet or so. That's Steve Edmonds, our building official, by the way, and he's about 6 feet tall. So this is the St. Croix. And from the aerial view, you can't really tell, but that there is damage in the upland area. But if you look to the picture on the right, you'll see on the left side, the property to the south, which is an old timeshare, was actually damaged. Their seawall failed, and we had scarring that went behind that seawall under the beach access that we had there. This is Palma Bella. You can see everything's gone. And I believe from the dune walkover up to where the upland area is relatively safe, it's almost 40 feet back in terms of damage. This is what it looked like before and after the storm. So this is Fenari Park. And you can see that, well, you can't really tell here that the stairs or dune walkover, whatever you want to call it, is damaged, but I'll show you a picture in a minute. If you look to the left of the circle, the yellow circle, you'll see that there is a crater on the city property. That area is actually cordoned off for safety purposes, and the reason why that crater was formed is because the Holiday Inn Express seawall just to the south of our seawall failed, and you had that impact from behind. So this is what it looked like before the storm, and this is what it looked like after the storm. And in these pictures, you'll see that not only was there physical damage to the asset of the city and the other properties nearby, but there was a lot of beach erosion had. It varies anywhere from 2 to sometimes 5. Some people have said even 6 feet in some cases as well. But thankfully, some of that is coming back. This is the Marbella condo. See everything's gone, and what you can see here just above the rectangular areas, you can see the temporary measures that were put in place by the Marbella condo. You'll see that for some other condos as well. And we've encouraged the condominiums to do what is necessary to basically protect their property and their lives. So this is a beach view, and you can see there they have their panels right across the beach access there. The Ocean Villas, and this is, I think this is probably our longest single way down dune walkover. I think it's close to 150 feet in terms of length. You can see it's very, very long. You can see the dune system was, relatively decently built up, and now this is what it looks like on the right-hand side. Actually, so you see 2 pictures on the right. The one on the furthest right is a view that shows currently, I'm sorry, at that point in time when the picture was taken, that the city asset was actually blocking the way for the beach access of the condo. And I'll show you a picture later on in which the city actually went ahead and removed that area, 3 panel to essentially grant them access to come down to the beach. So this is Salida del Sol, and this one also didn't incur any seawall damage. But on the left-hand side, you see what was there before, and you can see it's a decent dune system that was built up behind, and you can see it's all gone now. And then this is the last one, Sanibel, which is adjacent to Amelia Avenue, south of Dunlawton. This is basically what it looked like after this storm. So in terms of the overall recovery plan for the city, there were 3 things that we identified that would be needed to get us back onto the path. The first thing obviously was safety, our safety concerns, and then obviously short-term beach access, and then our long-term recovery plan to get back to normal. And I'll go over each of these in a minute. So the goal of the safety plan obviously is to remove and secure the unsafe components, beach access components, to essentially, make things safe for everyone, including the city and including the residents who would be traversing the area. Because we know after a storm, people like to go watching, looking for things and whatever have you. And so we did what we could to the best of our ability to essentially secure the site. So all the sites have been barricaded. In some cases, we've added plywood and timber, 2x4s, whatever have you, to essentially barricade and secure the areas as quickly as possible. And on the picture to the lower right, you'll see Salida del Sol. That's one of the efforts that we did take. Another thing that we did was we removed the damaged dune walkover remnants that were out there. So you'll see to the upper right, you'll see St. Martin, the remnant that's there, that has now been removed. Down in St. Martin as well, on the left-hand side, lower left, there was actually a cantilever portion of our dune walkover that was still hanging out there, and we actually had our guys go out there and saw cut that off so it could, essentially be out of harm's way. Because believe it or not, there were actually people out there who were sunbathing and still do that today near these damaged and very dangerous assets. So we're also hoping to remove the remnant dune walkovers at Sanibel and Ocean Villas, and we are obtaining quotes for those, and we hope to have those shortly. We do want to follow, all the legal, efforts that and requirements that the city has at the local level and also with the state. And because we're dealing with FEMA as well, we also have to follow their regulations as well. In terms of the actual short-term beach access, everybody wants to get on the beach. There are some things that the city did and have done and will continue to do. Obviously, the purpose of the short-term access plan is to, essentially repair the dune walkovers at the sites that didn't have damage in the upland areas, because we didn't want to have people accessing beach access where the seawall was gone or there was washout in the back. It wouldn't be smart, and we try to do that in a reasonable and timely fashion. So 3 dune walkovers are being targeted for repair. One of them is Fenari Park. If you look on the lower right, you'll see that that section in the circle, was an addition to Fenari Park that was done. We did that as quickly as we could, and I believe the park was open maybe about 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago. On the lower left, you'll see Ocean Villas. This is what I was referring to earlier, in which the city asset, the remnant of the dune walkover, was blocking the beach access for Ocean Villas, and we had our guys go out there and remove a few sections so that they can now go ahead and build their temporary stairs. And I'm not sure where they're at with that, but I was told that they would be doing that rather quickly. So we're also obtaining quotes for Ocean Vistas as well to temporarily repair that for emergency access purposes. We hope to have all our quotes in pretty soon and get on that before turtle nesting season starts. And we're also doing an analysis. Actually, our engineer recently conducted an analysis of Tuscany Shores because as lay people within the city, we had varying opinions, and we also spoke to different contractors as well who had varying opinions as to whether or not Tuscany Shores could be repaired or whether or not it had to be fully replaced. So we had our engineer look at it, and our engineer believes that it can be temporarily repaired, but there would have to be some additional enhancement made to it. So that's something that I have to run by the finance director to make sure we stay on the right track in terms of the whole FEMA regulations. So in terms of the long-term recovery plan, there's about 4 phases that we have to go through for this. And obviously the whole purpose of this is to get back to normal. So we're currently in the first phase in which our engineer will be doing what's called a rapid needs assessment. So they have been analyzing each and every site, and I believe they're about maybe 75%, 50%, 75% complete. And they will be doing an environmental analysis or assessment of the area. This is unfortunately something that we have to do, especially when it comes to DEP permitting and Volusia County permitting, and we want to do things the right way as a city. They'll also be taking temporary benchmarks on the surveying side to ensure that we can come up with a concept that works. And the concept is different from design. The design is actually in phase 2, and I'll talk about that briefly in a minute. But then based on the concept plans, there will be certain design options that are proposed for every single location. Every single location will not have the exact same template in terms of recovery, in terms of dune walkover, in terms of seawall, because the built environment and the environment in general, the natural environment at every location is different. And this is something that I tried to nail down with the engineer. I was like, can there be a template for everything? And he said, no. Plain and simple. He said, the built environment and the natural environment at every location is totally different, so things have to be designed based on the location and based on the variables that they're dealing with there. So in phase 1, they'll be coming up with those design options, and they will be making recommendations as well. Every recommendation obviously will have a certain cost associated with it, and so we'll have to go through that and make the best decision for the city at that point in time. The estimated time of completion is about 6 to 8 weeks. They understand that we are getting a lot of inquiries, and there is a high need and demand in this area for beach access, so they'll try to do whatever they can to expedite that process. The second phase is the design to bid and permitting. So in that case, the city would have received the options and the recommendations by the engineer, and so the city would have to go through the process of selecting the different options for the different and the various locations. In addition to that, the surveys would be completed. Now, I know there's a conversation about whether or not full-blown surveys are going to be required, or whether or not only certain points could be taken and then LiDAR imagery superimposed on that. That is a conversation that I've already had with the engineers, and the engineers have conveyed that to the surveyors, and we are actually doing some more research to find out whether or not that is something that the DEP will allow based on the design options that we're coming up with. Now, I have spoken to the city manager, and we do hope, and I have shared this with engineers, to have one pilot site located within the city in which we do try to utilize the method of only having a few points and then using LiDAR data on top, so that we could be an example for other people who might be in the same position in which, because surveys are expensive and surveyors are tied up. But if you can get a surveyor to just grab a few points and superimpose that LiDAR data, and for those of you who don't know what LiDAR data is, it's basically radar data. They call it remote imagery. It looks like an aerial photograph to some extent, but in a conceptual form in which you can figure out elevations on the ground. And that would be used to help with the design process and the permitting process with DEP. So, and based on all that, we obviously have to get the requisite permits, and that is something that we're also investigating as to whether or not we'll fall under the temporary order that was done by the state. There's a bunch of different avenues that we could pursue. A lot of things have to do with timing and what we're actually proposing, but the engineering firm is aware of what our options are and the different routes that we can take. And as soon as we get to that phase 2 process, we should have a better idea as to what the permitting will look like. But in terms of completing this phase 2 process, a lot of it will be subject to the whole permitting process, which is outside the purview of the city. We have to deal with other agencies, and the other agencies have conveyed to us that they will do whatever they can to try to expedite the process, but we're not the only ones who are applying for permits. So we'll see how that goes. And of course, in addition to all that was just said, after the permits are issued, then the bid documents would be drafted as well, and that takes us to phase 3, which would be the bid process, in which we have to follow the FEMA regulations, the FEMA rules, because we're hoping to get reimbursed for all of this. In addition, we have to follow state law, and we have to follow our own purchasing policies and procedures as well. And we're hoping that within 30 to 40 days after the bid docs have been drafted, that we can go through the bid process. That may change more or less depending on what we have to deal with at that point in time, but it's estimated it would be about 30 to 40 days. And then after that, is the construction phase in which we select a contractor. Construction happens, and of course, the ETC, or the estimated time of completion, is a function of what's going on in the supply chain, what's going on with regards to the contractor, their timeline, and how many jobs they have. It's been a little bit challenging, but feel we have a good path forward, and we're happy that the City Commission approved the engineering contract last council meeting, and we're moving forward. So if there's any questions for me, I'll be happy to take those, and this was just a broad overview of where we're at. I know there has been tons of inquiries with regards to beach access. I have the email address, I'm sorry, not the email address, but the website address for the county's website for people who want to stay in touch with the beach ramps and whatever have you. One thing that I did want to conclude this particular presentation with is that there's another item on the agenda that talks specifically about partnership with adjacent condos. We have received some inquiries from condos in terms of partnering to come up with a good way to and a cohesive way to basically rebuild and protect both the public access and also the adjacent property owners' properties as well. So I'll talk about that later on. Any questions for me at this point?
Questions, and then I'll recognize our commission here. So my first one is really more of a congratulations. I want to commend you on making sure we're taking care of the whole city. So that one that we're having at Ocean Vistas, very, very happy with that we have one at the north side of town. The more that we can do up there to distribute these evenly, if we can. The next thing is, were any of our condo walkovers insured? Maybe our finance director can answer that.
Yes, Madam Mayor, they were all insured.
They were all insured, okay. And one other thing is, do we go through insurance first and then FEMA, or how does that work?
That's exactly how it works. Everything gets turned into the insurance, and anything above and beyond or our deductibles will go on to FEMA.
Okay, thank you. And the next question is our Public Works internally doing whatever construction's been done on them, or have we gone out to a third party?
So we're going through the analysis phase at this point. In terms of actual construction that we've done on a temporary basis, we've actually gone out to a third party, and we anticipate, unfortunately, we don't have a coastal division for, like some other folks, but just to ensure that the best product is provided to the city and to the residents and to the visitors, we will be contracting that out, and that would be through the bid process.
Okay, so some of that temporary that we've done has been done outside of the city?
Yes, in terms of Fernari Park, for example, the extension that was done there where we lost it, but in terms of the demo, anything that we can handle internally, we try to do. So the St. Martin's dune walkover remnant that was just standing there in the middle of the beach, we actually got rid of that. The Ocean Villas section that was cut through to give them access to the beach, we did that. Those are things that we can handle. But in terms of actual construction, that's about, outside of our wheelhouse.
Okay. And the last question before I go on to the rest of the commission, one of the things when the city manager and I were in Tallahassee, we're asking for some relief. Right now, the city does not charge for permits if you were destroyed by Ian or Nicole. We found out nor does the county. Would we as a city have to pay that $3,500 permit fee? Do you have any idea?
That is something that the city manager is nodding his head, yes, in the affirmative.
Okay, all right.
The county does. We go through the same process as the citizens for permitting.
Is that per permit?
Yes, that would be per location.
Per location. Okay. All right, who else? Please ask to be recognized so we don't talk over each other.
Madam Mayor, I have a question.
Yes.
Stuart, the money that was allocated by the state of Florida to Volusia County, I think it was, what, $37.6 million?
Correct.
Of course, Daytona Beach Shores would not get all of that, but any amount that we would be allocated for that, would that be allowed for, to be used for these beach walkovers? I know it's for beach restoration, I just don't know what the definition of that is.
All right, city, I was gonna answer that, but let the city manager know.
So those monies, so there's actually two pots of monies right now. The original, the first time the governor came into town, he said 20 million. We got, across 4 counties, we got 5 million.
Volusia County got.
Volusia County did, not the city. Yeah, Volusia County got 5 million. That is going to be used towards dune restoration and temporary armoring. They're working with FIND, the Florida Inland Navigational District, to get free sand. But the county as well has run into some FDEP permitting snags trying to get the final agreement worked out on how they're going to proceed with this. And the plan is, so the 5 million they're calling phase 1, I was gonna mention this under my comments, but I'll go ahead and do it now. They've identified approximately 217 parcels that they are going to put the temporary armoring in front of. I do not know where those are. They're in Volusia County, is all I can say. But that is their plan. That's phase one. And then the 37.6 million would be for a study, dune restoration, beach renourishment, and phase two of armoring. And their armoring approach is going to be the trap bags. Does that answer your question?
It does. And I have one more question. if that's okay.
I just want to make sure everyone understands the bottom line of that 37.6 million. None of that will be going directly to any city. It will all stay at the county level for them to make the decision how to best use it.
Correct.
Okay, second question?
Stuart, the access that beach accesses that you mentioned before, how long have those been in place?
So they vary based on when the development actually transpired. So since I've been here since 2004, we've probably had at least 10 done. So some of them predated 2004 when I was here, but they've been in place for a while.
Is that it?
That is, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Landau?
Yes, I have a question, Stuart. You talked about upland damage. Could you define that and who is responsible for it, please?
So the upland damage that I'm referring to is on the public beach access that the city owns. So that would include the seawall, that would include the dirt behind the seawall, that would include the concrete walkway that's on the beach access. It would include irrigation or landscaping, whatever is there. So basically anything behind the seawall. I'm sorry, including the seawall, but above the beach.
And who is responsible for?
So in the cases that I'm referring to, in which are subject to the rapid needs assessment, I'm referring to the ones that are under the full ownership and control and responsibility of the city of Daytona Beach Shores. In some cases, there are upland areas that are owned by a private condo, and the city has an actual easement for public access there. In those easements, the city is not responsible for the upland areas.
Any other questions for our community service director? Yes, Vice Mayor?
What can we do to expedite? What can we do to help?
So you've already done the first and most important thing, which was to approve the contract with the engineer. And so from this point forward, we will be moving full steam ahead. At this point, I don't know that there's anything further that the commission can do necessarily. It's going to be a function of getting the reports done by the engineer, having staff and the engineer make the selection with regards to what the options are, and then from that point, we go to the permitting process. If we have any issues with permitting, then we may come back to the commission and see if there's, who has the strongest arm to twist.
Do you have to RFP the construction projects?
We have to go through a bid process, correct?
Holy mackerel, it's going to take time, won't it?
Yes, it will. And the reason why
We're going to miss out this summer, unfortunately.
that's what we're anticipating.
Do you know approximately the temporary ones that we've patched that are safe for the tourists and the residents? How many of those do we have that we think we can accomplish before turtle season?
So there's two more that we think we can get done. I believe Ocean Vistas and Tuscany Shores.
That'll make 4 total.
It will make 3 total that the
3
city,
total.
yes.
Okay.
However, just so you know, the county is working on theirs as well. And the county actually owns the Bellemeade Beach access right on the east side of where we're at. And they have a coastal division, and they were able to just go out there and do their thing.
So Vice Mayor, if I can, we as a city have to do the same thing that we're doing to the condo owners, is advocate. So when we go through our permitting process, it has been taking quite a while, and we're gonna recognize the same as long as it's taken for the condo. So, I mentioned 2 weeks ago that I was in Tallahassee with the city manager. I was in front of the House Resiliency and Recovery, and we had certain asks, and one of them were, shorten that period, get rid of the waivers, and then next week, the city manager and I will be going back a 9-hour trip, probably for a 15 or 20-minute presentation, but we're gonna say the same thing to the Senate. These are the things we need. Just again, none of this belongs to the city, belongs to the county, DEP. but we're here to advocate for our city and for our residents, and that's what we'll continue to do. So that's how we can help.
Madam Mayor, I just want to share that, you know, through the rapid needs analysis that our engineer is doing, if there's any additional location in which a repair could be made, a temporary repair could be made, or a re-enhancement could be made, you know, we're gonna explore that opportunity as well. So it may not be only these sites, but at this point, these are the only sites that we've identified.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Well, that was a great presentation. We appreciate that very much. At the end of even if you haven't signed a form, if you have any questions that you want to expand on this, these are our condos, this is our city. So at the end of this, any questions that you have for our community service director, I'm sure he'll be available. Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll go on to the approval of minutes for our city commission meeting of February 14th. Do I hear a motion to accept those minutes?
I so moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion on those minutes? If not, can you take a roll, please? And I'm sorry, who did the first motion? Okay, Commissioner Lendauer had the motion, and who second?
I did.
Okay, Commissioner Animo second. Joanne, if you could take a roll, please.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Lindauer,
Yes.
Commissioner Economos,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gladys,
Yes.
Commissioner Bryan,
Yeah.
Mayor Miller.
Yes, thank you. Okay, next we'll move on to our consent agenda. We have 3 items this evening. Do I hear a motion to accept as is without pulling any of the items?
I so move.
Okay. I'm going to give that to Commissioner Bryan. So Vice Mayor, would you like to second that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion from Commissioner Bryan and our Vice Mayor Politis, second. Joanna, can you take a roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Bryan,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gladys,
Yes.
Commissioner Economos,
Yes.
Commissioner Lindauer,
Yes.
Mayor Miller.
Yes, thank you. Okay, next we'll go on to the reports of our city attorney. So our city attorney, what do you have for us this evening?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Commission members. We have one thing for you this evening. On February the 22nd, we received a notice of appeal, and that is the case of Goberia versus Daytona Beach Shores, and that case involves a code enforcement fine that's been accruing for a couple of years. I think it's up to around $130,000 now. The property owners just went before the special magistrate to ask for a reduction in the fine. Obviously, they weren't happy with the results of that hearing, so they filed a notice of appeal. So that case will proceed in the circuit court.
Thank you. Can you please give me an update? Am I hearing something about public notice or ads in a paper? Has there been, I think Attorney Boyce had told us there was something new on that. Do you remember hearing that at all? Or city managers, do you remember that?
There was a couple of years ago about notices where you can put it on the county website, but you still have to pay to put a notice in that you're putting your notices on the website. And there are a whole bunch of exceptions. A lot of what Stuart and Noel do is an exception. You see how often they're up here talking to us. So at this point, we've said it's probably just easiest to continue as we are. The intent was to save the city's money, but in the long run, it really doesn't because of all the exemptions to it.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, Attorney. Okay, next we'll go on to the report of our city manager. City manager, what do you have for us this evening?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the commission. Unless you want me to, I'm not going to read the long update on all the crosswalks, but all of the questions about what DOT is doing with our existing crosswalks and the ones that were proposed are included in my report. Everything I know about the crosswalks is in this report, so I really can't expand on these, but I will be glad to reach back out to FDOT if there are questions. Veterans Park, you may have seen if you've been up back, we've started adding some concrete pads and other stuff to begin the improvements that we had discussed with the commission. So those are underway and they should be completed before Armed Forces Day.
And City Manager, for the people that haven't been attending or listening to the meetings, can you explain the updates and improvements you're making, please?
Yes, so, I don't remember exactly, but our federal government created the Space Force, which is a new branch of military service, and so we don't have a flag for them, and there's not room in the existing location without cramming the flags too tightly. So in essence, we're gonna take the existing flags and move them to the back side of the circle, with the American flag in the middle, the 6 flags, 3 on each side of that, adding a bench for Space Force, and cleaning up some of the landscaping and adding some bushes and creating a photo opportunity. We're having more and more weddings and receptions being held here, providing them an area to have some nice photographs outside. So looking forward to that being done. I think it's going to be a nice enhancement to what is already a wonderful park. We talked about the $37.6 million for beach sand restoration and dune renourishment. One thing I didn't mention is in order for the county to place trap bags or sand or anything, they're going to need an easement from each of the properties. So they're gonna try and get an easement from every single property owner that has coastal property. We don't know a date yet, but we're gonna host a meeting similar to what we did with FDEP to try and expedite that process, because the county can't do anything on your property until they have that easement. So their legal department is handling all of the legalese behind that. They've just asked us to help reach out to the community, and when we have that date, so those of you that this is impacting, watch our website, watch Facebook. We'll be noticing that meeting. I don't know when it is yet, but I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks. And then just to let the commission know, with Bike Week starting, I authorized our trash hauler Waste Pro to begin pickup at 6 rather than 7, starting Friday, running through the 3rd through the 12th. They like to get it in and out of town with their heavy equipment before all the bikes really hit A1A. We do this pretty much every year and have for a while. The contract says they can't start till 7. So I authorized that. And then two last things. One, I just learned today, thanks to the mayor, if some of our folks here that live in condos don't know it, your insurance is supposed to cover $2,000 towards your damage assessments. I did not know that, just learned it recently, and so I wanted to put that out there. I know I've talked to a couple that are aware of it, but if you're not, spread the word. That's $2,000, I believe, per unit, so that's a lot of money.
Weddings also. So if it can be separated between Ian and Nicole?
Yes, absolutely. There can be 2 separate claims, is my understanding, one under Ian and one under Nicole. So spread that word. And then the last thing, I learned a few weeks back that the county also has an ordinance about dune restorations for seawall construction. So all of our folks would have to do additional dune restoration per county ordinance contained in their chapters 50 and 72 of County Code of Ordinance. At the next county council meeting on the 7th, they are proposing to defer that for, I believe it's to December 31st, 2024. And the reason they're wanting to defer that is they're hoping that between the $5 million and the $37.6 million and construction as it goes in, they will be taking care of that for the folks. So that will help save the condos some money as well. I just wanted to pass that along, so that will be held, as I said, at the March 7th meeting for them to defer that through end of 2024. And Madam Mayor, that's all I have.
Okay, one of the things I wanted to add on to everyone that's in a condo out there, Kurt and I, again, were in Tallahassee a couple of weeks ago and met with someone in DEP and got access somewhat to a permit spreadsheet, so we were able to we were able to check to see who had filed permits, whether they're pending, completed. There is a lot of incomplete condo permits in there. So I know you're probably holding it to your president to work with your engineer, but my advice to you is to have your permit completed by May 1st. I mean, I just have a feeling if those are in there, that will be a level tool that we can use, you know, against maybe the May 1st stop date for the turtles. So again, please, you know, take ownership of this. Ask your president, ask your engineer, what stage are we at with our permits? So that was just one thing I wanted to add. Okay, any other questions for our city manager on his report? Okay, if not, we will move over into the rest of the agenda. So right now, we had no old business. So new business is Resolution 2023-04 Fund Balance Policy. Can our city attorney read that for us, please?
Certainly, Madam Mayor. This is Resolution 2023-04, a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Daytona Beach Shores, Florida, approving a fund balance policy, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, providing for implementing actions, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Were you speaking on this, our director?
If you'd want.
I can give a brief overview
Okay.
and then.
Thank you. First of all, was this a recommendation by our auditor?
Yes, a lot of cities have fund balance policies, and the idea behind them is pretty much that it's on staff to notify the commission or council of the city that, hey, we're getting low on reserves. We've never had one. As you're aware, reserves, we're very healthy in our reserves here. But the auditors recommended it, so our finance director, Lori, put one together, reviewed it with the auditors. They're comfortable with our policy as stated. And so if you have any questions on the details of it, Ms. Irwin would be probably better asked than I at this point, but it's covers all of our funds.
Okay, do we have any questions for our city manager or our director of finance? Okay, if not, can I get a motion to accept Resolution 2023-04?
We approve.
Thank
I'll
you.
second it.
Thank you. So we have a motion from Commissioner Bryan, and then we have a second from Commissioner Lindauer. Joanna, can you take a roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Bryan?
Yes.
Commissioner Lindauer?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Politis?
Yes.
Commissioner Economos?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes, thank you. Okay, next, our second order of new business is Beach Access Public-Private Partnership for Seawall recommendations. And I don't think that we have any resolution on here, so this would just be a discussion.
Discussion, Madam Mayor, with the hope of direction from the commission. Stuart Cruz, Community Service Director. Thank you, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. So this particular item is a discussion, and hopefully we can get direction from the City Commission regarding the potential for a public beach access partnership between the city and condominium associations that are adjacent to certain public beach access for reconstruction of seawall at those locations. So essentially, the city has been approached by 5 condominium associations, agents of 5 condominium associations in some shape or form over the past few months in an effort to come up with a way to partner with the city to essentially come up with a solution that would provide for a contiguous, a very sturdy and a unified type design system for a seawall in the area that's adjacent to the public beach access, but also in front of the actual beach access itself. So it makes more sense from a design perspective and a construction perspective, at least this is what I've been told by engineers and contractors, to have a unified seawall system. So most of you might know that our beach access or pedestrian beach access, they're anywhere from 5 to 7 feet to 10 feet. They're rather small. So to have a system designed for our public beach access that's only 5 feet wide or 7 feet wide, adjacent to condominiums who are doing their own thing, in some cases it doesn't really make sense. And so some condominium associations have recognized this and they have reached out to the city, and you may see in your packet, I believe we have about maybe 4 letters or so from 4 condominiums in which they would want to partner with the city. And if they were to partner with the city, if we get direction from the commission to move forward with this concept, essentially, as I mentioned, it would provide for a continuous and unified design system that would provide enhanced protection for both the condo and the city property, the beach access essentially. And some condos have also conveyed to me that they would be willing to pay for construction, and obviously they would undergo the design and the permitting process. So in other words, they would be able to move faster than the city does. You just heard my presentation in which we have to go through this whole bidding process and analysis process because we're the government. In the case of the condominium association, they can cut off and shave off a lot of time off that. And again, it would provide a unified design system that would offer protection to both properties. So the potential partners, and again, this is at some point in time, we were reached out to by agents of these condos, are Bella Vista, St. Kitts, St. Croix, Marbella, and Palma Bella condos. And again, you have some letters or exhibits in your agenda packet, and you can see those. So in terms of a potential solution or partnership, what would that look like? Unfortunately, again, just because every circumstance is different, we would have to evaluate these on a case-by-case basis. But essentially, there is a conceptual process to get this done. Because it's government property, we just can't allow someone to come on our property and build and make an improvement. We have to go through a process in which we could facilitate that. And after conversing with our legal counsel, the process basically entails several items. And the first is that the city could potentially deed over the seawall area in which the condominium association would be building this continuous seawall on the city's portion of the property. So we'd survey that area, we'd write that area into a deed, and I believe there's an ordinance that would also be associated with this, and it would come back to the commission for approval if this is the direction that City Commission wants to take. All night I was hoping I would make that mistake.
Still do.
That deed would also include what's called a perpetual reserve public access easement. So that's a backup to ensure that whenever the construction is finished, that if something crazy were to happen, that we would have that reserve easement in there for public access in the future. The second step would be to provide a construction easement to the condominium association outside of the deeded area, basically the area where the seawall is being built, so that the condominium would be able to go on the city property outside of the seawall area and essentially do the work. Because again, you just can't go on city property and start doing whatever you like. The construction easement would facilitate that process and that ability. The next step obviously would be the construction by the condominium. And then whenever the condominium is finished with the seawall construction, the condominium would go ahead and deed back that area, the original area that was deeded to them, back to the city. And this is the conceptual process that was discussed and agreed upon conceptually, again, by the city staff and by the legal department. There were a lot of different issues that we came about, and it really took some time for us to get to this point. There were liability concerns. There were a myriad of different concerns that we had to fight through, but we believe we have a process that makes sense if this is the way the City Commission wants to go. So I'm just going to run through these aerial photographs real quick. So we have Bella Vista again. We have the St. Kitts condo, and this area is a little bit different from the other beach access that we have. This is actually a 40-foot wide park adjacent to the St. Kitts. As I mentioned earlier, most of the beach access that we have, the pedestrian beach access, vary from 5 to 7 to 10 feet.
Sir, can I stop? Can you go back to the St. Kitts? I'm pretty familiar with this one opposed to the other one. So, I understand, if we tied in with St. Kitts, what would we do with that resident, that property north of this? Would we need to tie in or do something on the north side?
Something would have to be done on the north side to offer protection to whatever system is built. And that whatever happens there is going to be a function of what the DEP allows.
Okay, is this the only location we need to be concerned with, south and north, or is there more that we have, like Bella Vista, do we need to take the north into consideration too?
So whatever design system comes up, it will have to consider both sides of the property. So, well, the additional side of the property, and you know, that is something that we're gonna have to negotiate as to whether or not we can tie into that seawall system on that side, or whether or not we're just gonna do our own return wall. You know, but that's something, again, and that's the reason why I said it's a case-by-case basis.
Thank you.
So this is St. Croix. And then this is Palma Bella and Marbella. And so the reason why I'm before you tonight, Madam Mayor, Commissioners, is because, again, we've been having a dialogue with these particular condos for some time now, and we feel as staff that, you know, there is a potential path for us to move forward. You know, whatever we do, I have to underscore that we don't want to do anything to hold up any condominium. If a condominium can make things happen much quicker than we can in terms of, you know, having to deal with a city partnership that will require, you know, deeded documents, ordinances, and all that other good stuff, you know, we encourage those condominiums to go ahead and move forward. We have had some conversations with at least one condo in terms of potentially following a parallel path in which we would try to partner. They would submit 2 applications to the DEP, and 1 permit application would have a joint city and condo partnership, in which it would be 1 contiguous seawall, but then they would have a backup for just, you know, their own seawall in the event that things don't work out with the city. So we are seeking direction from the City Commission. If this concept is approved, then staff will go ahead and move forward along with the city attorney's office to convey and to pass on those deeded documents and ordinances to the condominium associations, have them review it with their CAM, their legal team, and their folks. And if they decide to go ahead with this, then we would be bringing those documents back to the City Commission for approval.
Okay. What questions do we have?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
And you guys are a lot smarter at this than I would ever be, but being an attorney, we always have something to say. So could Kurt, you and the city attorney, if you're gonna deed it to the condo, then you no longer own it, so they'll be responsible for insurance. You won't have to worry about the easement, and you don't have to worry about granting them access, because now it's no longer your property. But why even get it back and just deed it permanently and then allow the perpetual easement, and then you work out a deal of who's gonna maintain it? I mean, for what purpose do we own a little strip of land where you just got a walkway? As long as they could never block it in case, they get upset with something.
Okay.
The whole issue is liability, and the city would want to have ownership, you know, because you may have seen in some of the letters, and I was going to mention this a little bit later, there has been a couple of requests by at least 2 condos in which they would want us to vacate the beach access, and that is a more complicated matter that we have to discuss at some point in time in the future. I mean, not necessarily tonight, but the big issue with why we want to deed it back to the condominium association is because the condominium association doesn't want to incur that liability. We are capped by Florida statutes, to my understanding.
So it's all about the Benjamins. In other words, the premium would go, okay. So I'm definitely in favor of it, because I think it makes a lot of sense, and it expedites the entire process. And I think it's the smartest thing to do, because, you know, that contiguous and continuity in the construction of the seawall is very key to it surviving. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when this is going to happen again. So by making the best design and the best product, you increase the likelihood it's not going to get damaged in the future.
And so, Stuart, my question is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
My question is, if any of the condos would take them back, I mean, I want to make sure that all of our residents have access, public access, the closest spot they can. Right now, we have beach driving. We don't know if we're going to have that several years from now, so we have to plan ahead. We have to be proactive. So if we take away beach driving and we have parking spaces on the west side, A1A, I want as many public access spots as we can for people to get over to the beach. So tell me how that would work if a condo took over, could they say no more public access? Or if you could explain that
Well,
to me.
that's the reason why through the initial first phase in which we would make the deed to them, we would have that perpetual public access easement, reserve easement built into that deed. And so that would, I'll look at legal counsel to just,
He missed his calling, he should have been an attorney.
Is that correct?
He explained that exactly correct. It's a perpetual easement.
Okay, good. All right, good. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that you know and the public knows that we are certainly want to do anything we can to expedite things. However, I will not vote for any agreement that removes or limits access to the beach to the rest of the public and the visitors. So I don't want anything that benefits a few and punishes the vast majority of the people. So I will not vote. If you give away something, that's fine. But it's got to be legalese in there that says they will not reduce or limit access to the beach. If they agree to that, I'm fine with that, but I will not vote for anything that eliminates or restricts access to the beach.
And was that the perpetual
Reserve easement.
reserve we just spoke about?
access, correct. Yes, that's,
That'll fix it.
Now, Stuart, will that change the access points
No.
where they currently are? Has staff done any impact studies on how many folks actually use the access points on a year-round basis?
no.
You need a ticker tape there.
Turnstile.
What I'd like to do, and normally, people didn't sign up, but this is important to me that we hear from our audience. So if no one signed up, I'd like you to come up with your name and address, and please sign up a form and give it to Joanna when you're done. But this affects each and every one of you, and I do want to hear from you. So is there anyone that would like to come forward?
Madam Mayor, before that, I want to clarify one thing, and I'm going to ask the city attorney a question here. If we have the perpetual easement, it was mentioned the liability issues. If we have the easement and someone gets hurt, we have sovereign immunity up to $200,000, but then that condo could be sued for any additional damages. Is that not correct?
Well, that is an issue, and that's why we're going to take this after, if you approve this process, the individual condos will then take that to their own attorneys and determine whether they want to even do this. So they'll determine that risk, whether it's worth the risk. So that is a valid concern.
I just wanted to have that on record.
No, I'm great.
That sovereign immunity is a big issue because I believe it's a $200,000 limit. And if you leave all the news ads, you know that lawsuits, apparently Dan Newland gets a lot of money.
No one else we know. No one else. Anything else we want to bring up so that the public's well-informed before they come up and ask us any questions?
Just to clarify, we had one other that approached us after the agenda was out, another condo that they have a public access, but it is theirs in the development agreement when their condo was built. As Stuart mentioned, part of our code, they had to create one. They reached out to us, and they also want to just give it back to us and have it become a city-owned, city-maintained property as well.
So if we approve this agreement this evening, that,
It would be, each of these would be a case-by-case basis. We're just asking as staff for direction on, are you open as a council to taking those back? Because I know if we do one,
we have to do them all.
you're gonna get a whole bunch more. So I'm very concerned. We intentionally did it the way we did it. That was the public benefit. They probably got some type of entitlements, whether it was additional density or other things. When that agreement was done, that's why they had to do a public benefit, and the public benefit was the beach access.
Okay. So let me ask you again, so if we approve this evening, you're gonna go back and work on it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to take that over. We will go on a case by case, and if we feel at the time we did it when they were first building it in a development agreement, we are gonna stay with that same
But to expedite the process, if council can tell us, or dang it, commission can tell us tonight, no, we don't want to take over any that are private and make them, city-owned. Well, we won't have those discussions as staff, but also if there's any that are asking to close theirs and just take them over and deed the property back to them, the commission is not open to that. We won't have that discussion either, but those that want to work with us through this process that Mr. Cruz proposed will gladly do that. But the clear direction we have tonight on those two extremes will help us determine where to best spend staff time and how to expedite for those that want that.
Okay, well, I think with my statement and Commissioner Lindauer's, we don't want any that would not become public access. Are we in agreement on that?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, so we can.
That's
roll
clear
these.
direction.
That one's rolled out. So as far as the next one goes, my personal opinion is, I know in a development agreement, they did get either certain variances or something because they did that.
Right.
If we felt we needed it, and whenever that was, I feel like we still probably want to do that, but I'll listen to anyone else that has anything to say on those. So the extreme other way. Does anyone have a comment on that?
I think you hit the nail right on the head. That was part of the overall package, the agreement that we made with them to make variances or whatever it was, is to have them build that beach access. So I don't think that anybody has a right to claim now that it should not have been granted.
Okay. Anything else? Any other comments before we listen to? Okay. All right, does anyone want to come forward? Please just say your name and your address, and then, do I already have a form from you?
Yes.
Oh, great.
My name is Mike Dixon at 3245 South Atlantic in Palmabella. So the liability issues on this is really key in our association. Currently the city owns it, but we do want to fix the seawall. We feel that's very imperative. We're going to spend well over $1 million. If we have a 5-foot section that's not compatible, that's a risk that we don't want to take. But my question really is, we don't want the liability. We do want to deed it back. We would probably like to close it too, but it's pretty clear you guys don't want to do that. So deeding it back so we don't have that liability is going to be very key for us. Now, kind of in association with that, we are probably 2 or 3 weeks away from getting our engineering designs completed. So we need to know, other than the seawall, the area behind it, the upland, I guess is what you call it, we need to know that our engineering design is going to be compatible with that. We are going to have a return wall along the walkway, probably 25 or 30 feet. I haven't seen the designs yet. But that will go back in the wall to protect us long term. We didn't have a return before. But we really need, and I can talk with Stuart and the rest of the city in terms of how our design is going to fit into that. We don't want to be held up with it was a switchback ramp. Is that going to be the same thing that's going to be replaced? We're not planning on fixing the ramp or the walkway, just the seawall. And I think it's our understanding the city is going to do the rest of that. Okay. All right, so those are my comments. So we just really want to make sure our engineering is going to be compatible, with what the city's going to do to fix the rest of it.
And can I ask you, do you know where you're at in the permanent restoration process as far as permit goes?
They are going to, I understand our engineering company is going to be following that permit in a couple of weeks, once it's completed.
Okay, all right.
Do you have drawings yet?
No, that's what we're waiting on, a couple of weeks.
A couple of weeks, you expect drawings?
Yes.
I would be interested in seeing the drawings when you get them.
Well, I'll speak for myself, and other members can do the same, but I don't think you're going to find that we're going to nickel and dime you you're on our property when you're fixing it, or anything we can do to help expedite the.
Yeah, we certainly want to use the walkway to move equipment up and down while we're fixing it.
And get on your engineer about that permit. We'd like to see it complete by May 1st. Okay, great, thank you. All right. Who else would like to speak? Yes.
2515 South Atlantic.
Come on up, so we can hear in the mic.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
2515 South Atlantic.
And your name?
I'm Susan Furlong. I'm calling on behalf of the board here in our place, and we were one of the ones that said the liability is way too high for us. Right now, we've been devastated by what happened to our properties. And we've been kicked down by every government agency we've ever been in contact with. So, and now, right now, we're waiting for like SBA to give us like a loan so we can have like a bridge to get where we need to go. We run out of money really quick. We don't really have, we're not for profit. So it's kind of hard. And I'm new to this. I'm only in a condo for 2 years. So this was mind-boggling for me. So now our thing is that we do want to build our wall. Yes, we do want to, we have our permit today. Yeah.
Great, I did,
Thank you.
approved
Yes,
permit,
we
good
did.
for you,
We got our
good.
permit approved
Great,
today.
all right, great.
So we're really excited. We also got our grant
Okay,
from
oh,
the
you
state.
got the 150.
Approved today.
Oh, great, great.
Yes.
Can I ask you one other question? Do you happen to know where you were, I think, after you applied for it, they gave you what number you were in line?
Oh, for that,
I only know that
I'm
'cause-
for long, not long, but that's okay.
All right,
For long,
okay.
like the
But
rest.
you were told that you are gonna get the 150,000?
We did.
Great.
We got it. We got the check today, along with our approval and our permit. So we're really excited. However, when it comes to what is important to, I say town, city, and what's important to us, we want to work together. But we can't take that liability. We can't do that. So for us, we want to do return walls. We want to make sure that we're all protected. We want to work with you guys. We just need it to happen. We just need you guys to say it's okay. We'll take all the responsibility, just do it. I mean, you can deed it 1/4, whatever happens. But we don't need that responsibility of our liability. We're really afraid of that, especially with the whole insurance thing that happened to us last year. We went from 1% to 5%, come on. So that's another issue, but I'm just saying, for us, we want you guys to be there for us, and I know you've been there, I know you've been there, I know I've seen your faces pretty much everywhere. So we appreciate it. So that's about it.
Okay.
53 seconds. All right, so that's
you.
my, that's.
All right, thank you for
Do you
coming
want-
up, we appreciate, give it to Joanna.
Thank you very much, and
Who
thank
else
you
has
for your
anything
time.
to say, because we do want to hear from you. You know, most of you are condo owners. Anything that you want to say, one way or the other on this?
Madam Mayor, one other comment if I can. Because of the agreements and everything, some of the condos, I've gone ahead and told them, proceed for just your portion. I don't want to hold up, you know, we've said don't hold up any permits. This May 1 deadline is looming, and, you know, if we're doing an agreement, the earliest we could have an agreement between us and a condo would be the first meeting in March 14th. But that means no later than, I believe, March 7th or 8th, we would have to have that agreement done. Well, that's a week. So most likely, by the time we would be able to get that on the next agenda would be the end of March. Now they have the month of April to apply for a permit and get that permit by May 1st. So while staff wants to work with everybody, I want them to be aware of some of the time constraints of working with government in our meetings and the process. Just so that's out there that, you know, government moves a little bit slower than the private sector. We have to follow certain rules and procedures to be open and transparent in all things. So I wanted to get that out there as well.
Appreciate it. If there's no one else that wishes to speak, so are we looking right now for a consensus to go ahead with this plan? We've given you the one way and the other.
So
do you have
I think we know the two extremes are off the table, and then others, it's going to be a case by case, and we will expedite with the city attorney's help to craft those documents as needed per location, and if we can, get them back at the next meeting, or hopefully no later than the second meeting in March.
Thank you. Any other comments on that? Okay, all right. So next, we will move on to council comments. I just want to start by saying, normally, our coffee with the mayor would have been on May 8th. As I stated before, I was asked by the Senate to come and present to the Senate Resiliency and Recovery. You know, I'll go there again. We have about 4 or 5 asks that we're asking for. you know, all concerning the beach erosion. So we will be going there on that date. So consequently, we had to change the coffee with the mayor to March 15th. So please mark that on your calendar. We were able to get Ben Bartlett from the county. What is his title, Ms. Nancy? What is Ben Bartlett's title?
Public Works Director.
Director. So he will have a lot of inside information about what's going on the beach. As many people as we can get to talk to about that is what we're trying to do. The only other thing that I have to say right now, how many of you were at the concert on Friday night? Anyone? Wasn't it awesome? Awesome. Thank you, Director Maddox, for everything you did. It was a great, great event. We think we had, did we say 700? We thought, it's hard to estimate, but we estimate about 700 people. It's fantastic. So, Commissioner Bryant?
I just want to say, your food trucks were great.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you, Deborah. Commissioner Bryan, what do you have for us this evening?
I have nothing.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lindauer?
Nothing.
Thank you. Commissioner Economos?
No comments.
Okay, Commissioner, Vice Mayor?
Let me pick up the slack.
Okay.
So I went to the TPO, which is the Transportation Planning Organization, my first meeting. And
Thank you.
Councilman Reinhardt, who's in the back, Matt was there as well. And I was expecting boredom, and I found it very exciting, very interesting. So this board sits and listens to FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation, with regards to these projects that are being proposed and being planned for, oh my gosh, anything from right now to the next 10 years. So what I gathered, and I think it's my obligation to the commission and to you all to report back, is there's going to be a new interchange designed at Destination Daytona and US 1, on-ramp and off-ramp to I-95, a new on-ramp, off-ramp design at LPGA and I-95, and I think everyone is aware already about the Pioneer Trail one. But they were getting grants for Votran to help. It was a mobility on demand to help more of the impoverished areas, to have people have quicker turnaround times to get to their destinations. And then they also had an Amtrak grant to have the Amtrak come to DeLand. But they were talking about resiliency programs and how we are going to expedite restoring the beachside area as well as the mainland area. But what was really good, and I think really smart, is they're also going to do assessments to determine those flood zones, or those areas that are prone to flooding, so it doesn't happen again, whether it's creating new infrastructure, retention ponds, pumping it somewhere else. But there are a lot of projects that are coming to the Volusia County area, and I think in March, it's all going in front of the legislature for funding. So they already have different processes. They funded for an analysis. They have it funded for the soft cost, the engineering, which have already been done. The artist renderings are gorgeous. When you see it, it looks very, very nice. A lot of landscaping, a lot of wide sidewalks. But they anticipate that from the feel that they got of the legislature, that these things will be funded. So in the future, even if the administration changed, we're locked in because the funding's already there. So our projects are on the books, and it's just going to be a matter of time. They do anticipate, though, a lot of new population, a lot of influx. I don't know about you guys, but I can tell you, it's starting to look like Lauderdale here. I mean, the traffic on Dunlawton, I've never gone over the bridge, and halfway down to the bridge, it's bumper to bumper, and you have to go through 2 or 3 turn signal cycles. And it's not even a special event. So, I do my cross, and I hope to God, maybe it's just a fluke, but I don't know, brothers and sisters, it just doesn't look good. As far as and nobody talks to me, I get a few phone calls, but I walk that beach, and I had a couple of people approach me that live on the ocean, were telling me what hassles they were having with the permitting process. And you got to get a permit to have access, your construction people to get onto the beach, and you got to pay for that. And then there's another one for DEP, coastal construction, the county. And they were like, we're just trying to restore and put vegetation in there to anticipate what's going to happen in the next hurricane season. And we're trying to beat the May 1 because nobody is giving them a clear idea of whether they're going to relax that. maybe minimize the stoppage of construction on some of these seawalls or coquina seawalls. So I just wanted to let you guys know that it's not us, because we only control so much or have jurisdiction over so much. It's just the frustration with the county, and they were like really vocal. I think next time I'm going for a walk on the beach, I'm gonna wear a big baseball hat and big sunglasses so nobody recognizes me.
I don't think that's gonna happen with your picture on all
Tell
those
me about
billboards.
it. Tell me about it. Anyway, that's what I have to report to the commission and the citizens of the shores.
Well, we thank you very much for representing us. Thank you. Okay, any other council comments? Okay, if not, we'll move on to audience comments, and we have the privilege this evening of having our County Council District 2 representative, Matt Reinhardt. Do you want to come up? Did you want to say a couple words to us? Okay, so for those of you who knew that Billy Wheeler, this is the new Billy Wheeler, and he is doing an awesome job. Welcome.
Well, thank you, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. It's hard to get around that without saying councilman also. So, thank you very much. And yes, the TPO committee, I'm new to that as well, sir, and it's definitely eye-opening when I went to my first one. I went to the PD&E study this evening for the LPGA, the concept that they're drawing up right now. Remarkable. I mean, it goes much more into detail than what we saw. There is a lot of communication and a lot of attention that was brought up from people in that area about the bridge right there going over the Tomoka River right there. So that will be a 4 or 6 lane bridge that'll go over that. And what they'll do is they'll build a bridge next to it, maintaining that. So it's going to be a lot better. I think that was the biggest concern right there, is the bottleneck that it happens on LPGA. Also, the LPGA road itself, that will be redone and widened with a 14-foot shared path on both sides. A lot of attention with FDOT to safety, but also to bicyclists and pedestrian traffic. They had I think one of the most alarming and concerning slides that they have was the amount of deaths and accidents that have occurred in that area since they first started talking about this. And they showed it by color code on how the accidents that have happened, and there's been a lot within that LPGA Williamson area. So the attention that needs to be given will be. On another note, with regards to the permitting, I did receive an email, and I don't know if you have talked about this or not, what I had sent to you, from a constituent up in Daytona Beach, not the shores, but up in Ponce Inlet. One of the doctors up there, that he went through all the hoops that he had to do with DEP. We have finally, hopefully, broken through to them. I know that Tom Leake talked last night, that he had a conversation with our governor and had the conversation with Mr. Hamilton to help process those permits a lot quicker, because we're all kind of in limbo knowing whether or not we're going to proceed after May 1st. Hopefully we will. I appreciate you going up there to challenge that. He went through all the hoops, and come to find out the county made a requirement for 4 foot of sand 12 feet out that would have to be placed up against that seawall, which absolutely did not make any sense for right now. So I had a conversation with Clay Irvin, and we called Paulo in, the attorney, and said, you know what, we were here for something else, but let's address this. So I addressed it at the last council meeting, and we will have it up for vote Tuesday, which should go through to where I've asked for resolution to relax that until at least December 2024. A lot of money that has to be spent on beach-compatible sand just to place it up against a seawall that will probably get washed away makes no sense to me. So you already have to have beach-compatible sand for the property as well. So more attention and the money that needs to be given to that needs to be focused there. So it's a step in the right direction. Some of the ideas that were brought to me, we took that and we kind of played with a little bit, and we were going to come up with that resolution. Legal's working that out for us right now. So if you have ideas, please, I encourage, send me an email, let me know. That's how we get these ideas through. So I appreciate your time, but I want to make sure. And then, yes, we do have the dogs on the beach issue that will be coming back to us I have gotten a lot of emails. I think at the time of the meeting, I had 207 emails with regards to dogs on the beach. And they kind of go both ways, but the majority of them were against it for various reasons. I did entertain the motion to at least have the conversation because it was important to some. So if they still have those, yes, I will still take those emails, and I'll be there at that voice. My heart's up here on the beach side. This is my district, so it's very important what your constituents and you all feel as well, so.
Great, thank you.
I'd like to say something.
Yes.
One of the most important things that DEP could do right now is say, this emergency final order is not going to expire for another year or something like that, take away that uncertainty. So anything the county can do to make that happen.
Absolutely.
Would be great.
Absolutely.
Great.
You touched on something that is probably the number one complaint that I get is the permitting process.
Yes.
So anything you can do to help speed up the permitting process, either at the county level or at the state level, would certainly be appreciated, because the people are just frustrated. They do everything they're supposed to do, and then they have to.
Doing everything that we're asking them to do, and they're still finding challenges. So, and that was brought up from somebody that I would never have known that, really wouldn't have thought about that if it wasn't for that person that lives up in Ponce Inlet to bring that to my attention. And it took 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I think tops, of a conversation. I saw where it was going. Hey, let's get the attorney in here now. Thank you to attorneys. To be able to work out that deal, and we made that resolution that night. It can happen that quick, so I appreciate it, and then
We appreciate what you're doing too.
Absolutely, keep them coming.
Well, we appreciate you. We appreciate the partnership that we've developed with the county, between the Coastal Division, Suzanne, everyone has reached out to us, Clay, so I feel like everyone is working together for this common goal to get this done.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, maybe someone has any questions or feedback for you if you're gonna hang around afterwards. Okay, all right, if anyone has any feedback, I think there's two issues. Are we working on doing away with tolls too? Do you want their feedback on that, or right now it's only the dogs?
Well, that will be coming up. That actually will be, we'll first start the discussion, part one of that, because I assume that it won't happen in one night, but it's going to be a very long meeting. That's at the second night meeting. We'll talk about that, and then part two of Dogs on the Beach.
Okay.
So it should prove to be a very long night, but nonetheless.
All right.
That's why you make the big bucks, right?
I'm sorry?
That's why you make the big bucks,
Oh,
right?
That's right.
Somebody forgot to show me where that.
Yeah, right, exactly. Well, thank you for coming this evening.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Nice to see you.
All right, Matt will be around a little bit afterwards if you have any questions. Okay, now we will go, is there any other comment? Anyone else decide they want to talk? Yes, can you fill out a form when you're done?
I certainly will.
Okay.
Insurance. Tony Remzewski, 4 Oceans West Boulevard, Cloverleaf North. I just wanted to bring to the mayor and the commission, we're getting hit hard with this insurance. We had a $1,500 assessment this past October, and our insurance went from over $500,000 to $1.1 million. So what happens? The board has to hit us again. All our residents are being hit $3,000 to be paid March 15th. So whatever you can do down in Tallahassee, because they say it's not going away. We're going to be affected next year, and it's not good, guys. People are really hurting. $1,500 in October, $3,000 now we have to come up with. So.
Representative Leake talked at a meeting I was at last night, and it's not going to be anytime soon. They think it'll be at least a year. They're looking at that. They've done away with some of those scam roofers. But they are that, even before Ian and Nicole came, that was one of the main things they were going to look at this session. So hopefully we get some good news on that. But we'll keep
Our insurance broker said it's not going away.
Right. Okay.
Thank you. That is on their radar, so every meeting I've been to with the state representatives, they've always brought that up, so they are working on it. But again, they said it will take a little bit of time, so.
Thank you. Okay, any items for our next agenda? Okay, I have one thing that I want to look at. If we go back to probably 3.5 to 4 years ago, we were trying to get more businesses to come into the city. We came up with economic development plan that had 3 prongs on it. One of them was the lease subsidy. I think that's been pretty successful. The second one was that we reimbursed for some of the expenses. We have done away with that. We've sunsetted that. I would like a discussion at our next meeting. The last one that's outstanding is the ATR. So if we could just add that to the agenda, and you can give us some background on that, and we talk about that to see if that's something we want to sunset or continue to do.
Could you explain what ATR is that people are?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's the alternate tax relief. Am I saying it correctly? So what that was is some properties, and it was mostly on the east side of A1A, if people were going to be doing any building. So quite honestly, we put that into effect. Maybe someone like I hate to even say the words Treasure Island, but Treasure Island. So we offered them some ATRs. My main goal there was to get that building down. So I know some people weren't happy. We gave them some concessions. We gave them an ATR, but I am just so happy. I can't even imagine during Ian and Nicole with the winds we had and that building that was so unsecure, what would have happened to other buildings, to A1A. So all in all, that was a good idea. But I want to see going forward, do we want to offer tax reliefs to someone else coming to build in the shores on the east side? So that's what that's about. Thank you, Commissioner.
I think that would be a case-by-case basis.
Okay. So you want to still keep it?
I'm
Let's put it on the agenda, we'll talk about it
Yeah,
then.
it was always a case by case, but we could always put it into the development agreement, but just add it on there so we can talk about it. Anything else we want on the agenda?
Actually, Madam Mayor, I have a question. Why can't any other businesses build on the east side other than condominiums or hotels? For instance, a restaurant.
Stuart, can you answer that? So if a big restaurant wanted to come on the east side, do we have restrictions on what can go on the east side of A1A?
On the east side, correct, and that's determined by our comprehensive plan and our zoning regulations. So many years ago, previous Commission and City Council elected to have the highest and best use of properties because we were landlocked for the most part in the island, and so they wanted to get the most bang for their buck in terms of tax dollars, and so they zoned and they changed the future land use for all the properties on the beach side to have the highest and best use, which at the time they felt was condominiums and condominiums and hotels. And that's the reason why you can't have a standalone restaurant at this point in time. However, if this is something the City Commission wanted to investigate, I mean, we could certainly go ahead and work on that.
We, in all essence, we don't have that many empty properties in the shores, do we?
On the beach side, no.
No, okay, all right. So then we decide, do we want the revenue from a condo or a hotel, or do we want a restaurant is probably where it came from. Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I think on that issue, the cost of the property would be prohibitive,
Yeah.
so
I
that
think you
takes
have to
care
worry
of it.
about the restaurant.
Right. Yeah.
We couldn't afford to eat there if they.
Well, I mean, you've got Land Shark just north of us in Daytona, so that's, there's all kinds of restaurants that are there, so I don't know why someone like that couldn't come here as well. So there are people with money. We're trying to get businesses to come to the shores. I think we should explore every opportunity. I'm not saying it would be the best idea, but I think it's worth opening up for further discussion and possibilities.
Okay. Do we want to add that to the next agenda? You want to put that as agenda item?
Sure.
Okay, all right, we can group that together. Did you have another comment? Well, you have to come up, so.
Just real quick.
It has to be on public record.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just wanted to know, like, you keep saying case-by-case basis. Doesn't it all go together? I don't understand case by case. Like, here you can do this, and here you can do that. So I didn't know.
May I respond?
I'm new. So.
Okay. We have an ordinance or a thing that allows us to pay people to change the signs to the new standards. They come to us, they propose, they give us a proposal, and we either approve it or disapprove it. Most of the time, as long as they comply with all the city regulations and so forth, we approve it.
Okay.
However, we've had several cases where they come and ask us for money for this sign grant, and on their website, they claim they are in Daytona Beach, not in Daytona Beach Shores. So now, on a case-by-case basis, we went to the first one and said, you're in Daytona Beach Shores, you're asking for money from Daytona Beach Shores, you should say on your website that you're in Daytona Beach Shores. They changed their website, we gave them the money. Another one came, and they had the same thing, they said they were in Daytona Beach when they were in Daytona Beach Shores. We told them that we're not gonna give you money unless you change the website to say that you're in Daytona Beach Shores. They said, no, that's too expensive. We said, okay, that's a business decision, you don't get the grant. So that's a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that was an example of a non-conforming sign. So about 10 years ago, they decided we wanted certain types of signs. Okay, so that was that. So there would be a case-by-case for what we're talking about. When someone comes to us, another example, leasing property here. We have enough breakfast and lunch restaurants here. We would like to have more dinner restaurants. So on a case-by-case basis, if someone said, I want to open up breakfast, we probably would not give them a lease subsidy.
So I was thinking about like that thing with the, you know, giving part things and deeding back and all the things about that. I was like, is one condo gonna be able to do it this way and another condo gonna be able to do it that way? You said it was on a
Case by case, okay.
So-
So on those, we took out the two extremes, so there'll be a couple that'll be in the middle, and we'll look at that and see. And we'll take certain things into consideration, what property's to the north of it, what's to the south, so we'll look at that.
Thank you for clarifying.
You're welcome, you're more than welcome.
Curious, thank you.
Okay, and if there's nothing else, I think we're adjourned. Thank you.